Are you looking to become a better real estate investor? Then hang on, because you're about to experience another episode of the world's most popular real estate podcast, the BiggerPockets Podcast. But before we get to this week's show, I wanted to invite you to become part of our community, BiggerPockets.com, the real estate investing social network. The membership is free, and you'll instantly gain access to networking opportunities, educational content, investor tools, and more. Sign up now and get a free copy of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, read by hundreds of thousands of budding entrepreneurs. Just click this link right here, or just head to BiggerPockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, show 72.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with my co-host, Brandon Turner. What's up, Brandon?
What's up, Josh? Hey, what's your middle name?
My middle name?
Yeah,
it's NFB, buddy.
All right, fine. Don't tell me what your middle name is.
None of y'all.
Yeah. I got you. How's
Okay.
it going?
I'm good. You know, just getting ready for the show, the big show. We got a lot going on BiggerPockets, and that actually does lead me to today's quick tip. All right, so today's quick tip is this. We have been busting our backsides on a redesign of BiggerPockets for a good 6+ months, and this thing is amazing, and we're really, really excited about it. So really the tip is to keep your ears and eyes peeled for the launch of the new and improved BiggerPockets. I'm very pleased with it. I don't know about you, Brandon, but I think it's going to help people a lot. Yeah,
I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, most of the things are the same. You'll notice a lot of things are the same, but a lot of things are different. Pretty much everything that was not cool before is now cool. That's my thinking. And everything that was cool is the same. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well played, my friend. Well played. All right. So today we got a show with Mark Ainley. Mark's the owner and operator of a real estate brokerage and property management firm serving the greater Chicago area. Mark has built a fairly sizable team. They manage and own lots of properties around town up there in the south side of Chicago. And Mark's got a lot of great tips to help us out in terms of property management and doing deals himself. He's personally done, I believe, somewhere between 150 and 175 deals, consisting of everything from SFRs to multifamilies to condos, you name it. So definitely check it out. There's lots to learn, and hopefully you'll enjoy. Really quickly, show notes can be found at biggerpockets.com/show72. And otherwise, sit back and enjoy the show.
cool. Let's do it. Let's bring him in.
All right, Mark, welcome to the show, man. Good to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be on here.
Great. And good quality mic there. That's always nice when the guest has a good quality mic. Good job.
I had a good referral source for it.
Nice.
Good. Well, cool. Well, glad to have you here. Why don't we get to this? We want to talk about your whole story because you've got kind of a fascinating story. So let's start at the very beginning. How did you get bit by the real estate bug?
Well, I wanted to, when I was younger, I always wanted to be, just associated with Wall Street or money. I kind of always want to be a stockbroker.
Yep.
But growing up in the late 90s, we, that kind of went online and kind of did away with your traditional stockbroker occupation for the most part. So then I kind of thought the next big, glamorous, fascinating industry was kind of real estate. And that kind of went away for a while. And I thought about being a teacher and everything a boy wants to be a firefighter, policeman, and all that stuff. But I ended up buying when I just coincidentally, accidentally, because the market was right. It wasn't because I was really excited about real estate. But I bought my first place I bought it from my dad. He was actually getting married, and he didn't want to rent to me because he felt me as a liability being 21 living in his place. So he actually sold me his place.
Nice. Awesome.
And he
way to see there's a sense of trust there.
Yeah. He'd come visit. That's other stories. But so I owned my first place. My mortgage, taxes, insurance, association fee, I was paying like $950. And my friends were still living at home, getting in trouble, not doing good in school, not working, and they get kicked out of the house. So they would come and they would stay with me. I charge them $500-$600. And at one point I had two buddies there, and I was actually making more than my payments by the time they threw in for groceries and everything like that. I'm like, wow, if I wasn't even living here, I could rent to a third person and I could be up $500-$600 a month.
That's funny. I actually did that when I was in college. I rented an apartment and it had 4 bedrooms. So I rented 3 of the bedrooms out to other guys. And I was like, this is long before I got into real estate. I mean, not long before. And I was like, wow, this is great. If I rented out my own room, I could live for free. So I rented my own bedroom out and I slept on the floor in the living room for, 6 months or something like that. So yeah, that was, that's how
serious?
Yeah, totally serious. That's how I that's when I first realized that I could sacrifice to live for free. And anyway. Yeah, that's my very, very early real estate story. And then a year later, I bought my first house, and that's when I actually started. Anyway, not about me. Mark, back to you. So you got this house. You were hacking. I call that house hacking, where you buy a house, live for free because your buddies pay for it. So, So how did that go?
Well, I was. It was good. I was 21, 22 years old. I was working I was going to school, but I was also working at a trucking company. And I had, it was a 24-hour place where I worked a shift. It was 4 on, 4 off, and I worked overnight. So I had 4 days off in a row, and I had all day. And at that age, for me, I guess I didn't sleep much. So I had plenty of time to kind of figure out life. And, I was into reading, back then it was all the Donald Trump books and Art of the Deal. And just, they didn't have real estate books like they do now. But just reading whatever and trying to gain knowledge on it. And at the place I was working at, I met my current partner that is with me with GCA and all my investment properties. And we started, we're just kind of venturing, trying to be entrepreneurs. We looked at ice cream trucks. We looked at vending machines. We sold purses, whatever we did to make a dollar. We kind of were always trying to look for something. And, this was really when 2002, 3, somewhere in there, right when things really started kind of going crazy. And one day I was sitting at my buddy's house. He lived in an apartment building, and under the door slid a notice saying, "We're turning this place into condos. If you want to buy this place, you'll get it for $10,000 cheaper than what we're going to end up marketing it for." And it kind of hit me. I said, all right, well, worst case scenario, back then I wasn't counting, closing costs or realtor fees or anything like that. I'm just thinking I'm $10,000 up if I buy this thing right now. So me and my current partner, we ended up buying that place that my buddy lived in. And he stayed on there as a renter. Shortly after that, he moved out for whatever reason. And we end up renting. This is probably our first nightmare rental situation. But going back, take one more step back. The day of that closing, when I closed on that condo, this was before I had my real estate license. My best friend, who actually at the time actually founded GC Realty, my real estate and property management company, he was working for a real estate company in the neighborhood. And like I said, I was around during the day. He'd come over, work from his laptop then. And he said, "Mark, get your real estate license." Now, before that day, he tried telling me this 25 other times, but that day it made sense. He said, "Mark, if you would have had your real estate license today, you would have." He figured it out on the calculator, and he said, "You would have had this money." It ended up being like $3,200. And that $3,200, I'm like, "Oh, that would have covered this. That would have covered that. That would have covered this." So right away, it hit me. After all the times he told me, it hit me. I said, "All right." I started doing the home study the next day. Shortly after that, about 3 months later, while I'm still studying for that test, I did the home study. It took me a little longer than I wanted to. But he said, "Mark, I'm thinking about starting a company. You want to come on board?" I said, "Sure, I'm in. Let's do it." So we started GC Realty Development in late 2003.
Nice.
Very simple, working out of his basement. Nothing glamorous.
So it was just you and this buddy. Now, did you end up actually buying that condo or?
Yes, that was the day we closed. I brought home the HUD and all that stuff, and he said, "Man, you could have got a commission on this deal, man."
I gotcha.
That was the whole lightning bolt that day, and I spent that $3,200 commission I would have got in my head fast. Then I realized I don't have that $3,200.
Would you recommend new people start getting into the business the way you did, or do you think that maybe you want to learn a little bit more before you get in and start house hacking, as Brandon likes to call it?
It definitely reduces your risk, so it's always a good option to explore with limited risk. Yes.
Cool.
Got it. Yeah. Except, of course, if your friends are deadbeats.
Well, yeah.
Actually, how did that go? I want to know that. Did that work out well, renting to your friends, or whatever happened to that house that you lived in?
Well, it worked out good because the cool thing is I didn't have to go through eviction court to kick them out. I just said, "Yeah, get out. I'm done." So I would go through 3 months where I take the extra money, then 3 months I kick them out, and so it was nice to have those options.
Because of your friends, you can just shut the door on them.
Yeah, there's no 5 days.
I guess. All right. So how did you go from there? I mean, you got the condo, you got your license at that point. How did you get from that? I mean, what'd you do next? I know you did some flipping in there somewhere, right?
Yes. Well, that first condo we bought, the conversion, my buddy moved out. We moved a new tenant in, and it was the worst tenant ever. So I had right off the bat I didn't do too much screening. I fell for a sad story, and it was a horrible tenant. And we ended up paying her to leave before cash for keys are popular. We did it ourselves in that sense, just to get rid of her.
Let's talk about that real quick. Those people who are listening, I don't think we've covered it too deeply in the podcast. What is cash for keys, and why did that work for you?
Good question.
Well, cash for keys is basically the substitute to going through the legal eviction process. As an example, if a tenant's not paying today, I can either hand them a 5-day and start the legal process, or I could say, I'll give you $500 if you're out by Sunday and you turn over keys to me. Okay. And they use that money to move on. I get possession back quicker and can start moving on.
Yeah. I've done now. I've had like 5 or 6 really bad tenants, like really bad that should have been evictions, and 4 or 5 of them then were we did cash for keys. Only one did I ever actually take to court, and I'm on my second right now. The rest have all been cash for keys. So I'm a big fan of it. It hurts the pride a lot.
Did it work
for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked every time. They left it fairly clean because they wanted that money, and they were gone. But the one lady that we did anyway, she refused to even answer the phone or the email or whatever, so we had to evict her. And now the second lady's the same way. But I'm a big fan of cash for keys. But like I said, it does hurt the pride. So
I'm curious for both of you guys. I've actually never done cash for keys. Brandon, were you doing $500? And Mark, it sounds like that was your number. Yeah.
For that particular situation, yes. Here in Cook County, where Chicago's located, the judicial system screwed up in the sense of everything takes forever and everything costs money. And to evict someone in Chicago, it could take anywhere from, it can max out at 6-7 months sometimes. You hear some horror stories. And to give a guy a couple $1,000 to eliminate that, it's and you can usually see now that I have the experience, I can see that tenant that's going to take 6 or 7 months and it will work the system.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my case, I think the highest we ever paid was like $600. The lowest was I think $200. Like the last guy was just he was a tweaker. Like we found out that he was like he got into drugs really bad while he was there. He needed some money for drugs, so I offered him $200 to be out by Friday, and he was out by Friday, and I gave him $200 cash. My lawyer actually told me that. He said, dude, show up at the guy's door with a pile of cash, get it all in tens, and then show up and just wave it in front of him and say, this is yours on Friday if you're out. He said, because when you're on drugs, like you see all that pile of cash, that's all you think about for the whole week. And it worked. So
yeah, remind me next time that you ask if I want to invest in a property and Mark is saying no. That
there are druggies everywhere. This is a nice house too, but this guy went down the rabbit hole of drugs. So
yikes. And now, do you feel bad about the fact that you're giving drugs to a tweaker instead of giving him a home? Now you're giving him cash.
I'm gonna let Mark answer that one.
No comment, Mark.
No comment. Let's move on. So, all right. So that first one went really bad. You did the cash for keys. What happened next?
We said we're never going to rent to anybody again. Let's go flip houses. That's exactly what the conversation.
Nice. And now, did you stay true to that, by the way?
Well, for a very short time, till the market crashed, pretty much.
Okay.
So how'd the flipping go? Like, what was that like?
Well, again, it was with my my current partner I have now, and he is more of a mechanically inclined partner, and I'm not. And I'm good with Excel spreadsheets, and he's bad. All he knows is Yahoo email, and that's about it. So. We have a really good partnership in that sense. So it made sense and it still makes sense. Our partnership is our strengths and weaknesses. So we bought a couple houses. And on those houses, I was actually in there doing the work, taking down the old pool, filling it in, painting, doing everything I could because we were just trying to maximize our profits at that point.
Nice.
So we then, we did do a couple flips successfully. We got stuck with 1 or 2 that turned into just rentals. And that's how we kind of involuntarily became landlords again at that point.
Gotcha. So, let's talk about those first flips. What was it like, becoming a house flipper? What could you have done differently? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? That kind of stuff.
Well, the market was on the up. So that was the best thing we had going for us, where no matter what we bought, no matter what we did to the place, we could sell it for more 6 months later. So that was the good thing. It was just timing, and didn't see it at that point. But in hindsight, I could say that. But it really cutting costs down and controlling and being at the project every day. To do a flip, it really takes you to be on the property every single day. At that point, it wasn't hard to find buyers, and it wasn't hard getting qualified for mortgages. So it wasn't like flipping is today. And we looked into doing flipping last year, and we kind of faded away. And we're actually working on one now currently, but it's a whole different ballgame than it was 2004.
That's very true. That's very true.
You mean you just can't put a sign up that you're flipping the house and have a buyer 5 minutes later who has 1% money down and not even close to qualifying for the mortgage?
And all you did is paint the place.
Yeah. No, there you go.
All right, right on. So you started flipping. Some of them turned into rentals. Is that when you got back into the rental game? Like, what made you stop flipping? Was that the market crash?
Well, the market started going up, and there was less opportunities to buy those. There wasn't, anything that went on the market. You had 25 people at, and you're getting rooted out you're getting thrown out of the process by cash buyers right there and then. But at the same time, we also started working on the brokerage side of things with GC Realty. And when I first got my license, I really went around to these condo conversions, and they were happening everywhere. And I would go into them, and I would sell 10 or 15 of them in a week or two's time to various people I know, because those people are just coming in and get 100% financing. And I was really we were growing the brokerage side of things at that point. So I kind of faded away because on our flips, there wasn't much margins. There was, you're walking away with 20 grand with a heck of a lot of risk. And then more so, we got caught with a couple that, ended up just renting. So we just weren't as liquid anymore.
Hey, Mark, similar to that first deal where you bought the condo, you were working with the builders and you were the agent on the sell side for the conversions. Is that what it was?
Correct.
Got it. Yeah. So let's talk about that for just a second, because it was actually something that I wanted to do back in the day when I was an agent. I always thought about getting in with these developers and if you get the contract, you got the whole property, right?
Well, we didn't represent we weren't representing the builder. We were simply, I just have a pool of investors or people that I knew that were looking to get in real estate that I would bring to the table, and they would buy these condos. And these condo conversions were sold and selling out in a matter of a couple of weeks, just because everything was going so fast at that point.
Gotcha. Well, can you clarify on that? So you've got a pool of investors that you're bringing to the table. I don't quite understand what you're doing. So, are you buying a property?
I was just really acting solely as an agent at that time from my company, GC Realty, and we were representing investors in buying the condo conversions.
So you were just the buyer's agent on that, yeah.
Yes, and the important thing of that is that's how our property manager started. I was sitting at the closing table. We sold a condo to our attorney, who at the closing table was like, "Mark, how much would you charge me to manage this?" I'm like, "I don't know. How much you pay me?" He's like, "I'll give you $50 a month." I said, "All right." He's like, "All right, I'll drop the management contract and send it over tomorrow." And that's how GC Property Manager was born, right there at the closing table that day.
That's funny. That's interesting. I actually still, I used to do like $50 a month. I had some friends that wanted, help with the rentals, and like, well, how much would it be to do 2 hours of maintenance every month? And I'm like, and then just answer phone calls. I'm like, I don't know, $50. To this day, I still answer their phone calls for $50 a month on that property. It's been like 9 years since I did that for the first time, or 7 years. Because I don't know, I don't want to call and tell them, hey, I'm not going to take care of this anymore. And so I just still answer the phone calls every once in a while. And I'm like, I probably put in, I don't do the maintenance anymore, but I probably put in an hour a month of work. So it's like $50 an hour. So I just keep it up. But I need to probably quit that pretty soon.
That particular client, we still do charge $50, and we still use the same management agreement he gave us. So we got it was a value add scenario.
Nice.
I guess there's something to the legacy agreements, right?
Yeah.
There you go. All right, nice. So that's how you got into property management. So you went from flipping to mainly agent stuff to rental properties and stuff. So why don't we actually move to that and talk about your rental property investing? Like how did you get back into, because you bought a lot of properties in the next after the crash, right? I read that online. You bought a lot of properties.
Yes.
So how did that happen? How did that transition happen from
and I'm curious about how you actually bought the properties. I mean, were you financing them, or were you doing how were you acquiring these?
Well, I'll take a long story and trim it up. So when we got into property management, we started managing properties for a particular client that, we managed 3 properties for him, and we got to know him, and he was really about buying properties. So he was buying properties. We were actually doing the work on them, and we were selling it for him. So we were getting paid 3 ways. We were getting the buy side, we were getting a general contracting fee, and we're selling them. We're selling them to people we knew because we knew that they're good properties. With that that same client, so we were kind of building a relationship with him. That same client I took to an auction one day in May 2008. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we left that auction that day, and he bought 3 properties for $70,000.
70 each or 70 total?
70 total.
For the 3 properties.
Okay. Yes.
And this is Chicago, or where were these?
This is south side of Chicago, these properties.
Oh, south side Chicago. Gotcha.
So he
That's like Detroit for those people who don't know Chicago.
Oh, there's a lot of good areas.
All right. So $70,000.
So that afternoon, I was kind of like, what'd you just buy here? And he said, well, we're going down that way right now. You want to come check one of them out? So this is my first experience on the south side that day. It was hot. It was a Sunday afternoon, people everywhere. It was my first experience down there. So it was an eye-opener for what the reality of life is down there. But we go into this first property. He bought a condo for $24,000, and we walk in the building. The whole building's empty. The other 4 condos are empty. We walk into the unit. There's a sheriff sign on the unit door, and we walk in the unit. Everything's stripped out, everything. And I'm feeling horrible as his real estate agent. I'm like, oh, I should have helped him. I should have looked into this more for him. I should have let him buy it. And he goes, this is great. See if the other ones in the building are available. I'm like, what? So he broke it down for me. He's like, I'll put X amount of dollars into it. I'll rent it for this much. This is what it costs we'll manage it, blah, blah, blah. And I went home that night, threw together a spreadsheet, and I realized, I said, man, based on those numbers, this is like a 25 or 26 cash on cash return for that's what he said.
Yep.
So I went back to him a couple days later and with my partner and said, we should start, let's kind of put some money together and let's buy these mass quantity, because there's no way these won't at least double in value based on, it just can't go any lower than that. And at that time, the Olympics were coming, that was right in the neighborhood of the proposed Olympics. So if the Olympics came, that could have been a humongous thing as well, too. Ultimately, it never came, but Olympics not coming helped better for the South Side because for the investors, because prices went down a little lower even. But
wait a second. So prices couldn't have gotten any lower, and yet they went lower, right?
Yeah, they still went a little lower.
Okay, so I just want to call you out on that, because for everybody listening, I think this is a really, really important point. Don't ever assume it can't go lower. Because, it really, really can. And even when everything looks like it's going to line up for you, you got to be cautious about these things. I mean, I think you probably ended up okay in the end, but the risk is always there. There's never zero risk that it's going to turn and go against you.
Yeah, but we're talking about $4,000 or $5,000 lower, which is really 10-15% still. So
it's lower though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And for you who bought it at probably the right price, somebody else who may have chased it, that $4,000 or $5,000 could have been a problem. And if you're stacking notes and you're leveraging yourself, you could find yourself in trouble.
Yes, but the income on them are pretty significant, so that really offset any sort of risk in that element. So
I got you. Yeah. I got you. Well, again, I just we've got 25,000 people listening to the show, and I don't want people going ahead and buying property who don't know what they're doing, assuming that the property is never going to go down. I mean, yes, income is great, but if you're buying it for appreciation in any way, shape, or form, think twice about that, because there's always a chance it could go the other way.
So Mark, how did you then, decide you bought these things for, cash flow, right? You're not assuming appreciation. Is that correct?
Correct.
For those people who don't know, what is the difference and why do you choose one over another?
Well, appreciation is really a guessing game, I guess, if you want to put it that way. And cash flow is really a specific return that you're going after. And up until in Chicago, more particular, there was no such thing as cash flow before the market crashed. So that really introduced cash flow to me when the market crashed.
Yeah. How many deals did you buy during this time then?
In between 2008 and 2013, we collected 135 units. We did.
Nice. 130. And were they all like single family houses, or were they, condos?
Our largest building was 18, and then we had our smallest was a condo or a single family. So we had everything in between, a few 6 flats, and so forth.
Okay. So can you, what do these deals look like? What were you buying them typically for? what kind of, cap rate or maybe ROI, like what were you looking for? What was your like standard for a good property?
We were trying to keep our costs between purchase and fix up between 40 and 45,000. That was always kind of the goal.
Okay. And what do those rent for?
We were getting anywhere between 1,100 and 1,300.
Ooh, that's great. That's
awesome.
Really, really nice.
And it's all Section 8 housing for the most part.
Okay. So these are all I'm assuming these are all low income Section 8 housing, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And what kind of condition were they? I mean, did they all need rehab? Did you have to rehab them all, or how did they, condition wise look?
They were various. Some were 75 years old, never been cleaned up. And those were the worst cleanups. But the ones that were remodeled 20 years ago and just the electric and the plumbing, all that was stripped out, those were the easier ones that to put back together.
Okay, cool. I'm definitely a big fan of the idea of finding things that need a little bit of work, fixing them up a little bit, then renting them out. I know it's kind of a hybrid between flipping and renting, but I'm a huge fan of that. So let's talk about a little bit more about those properties. So you're buying them, they cash flow incredibly, right? How did you find them? Are they all MLS deals?
Yes, they're all MLS deals at that point. And they still, on the south side of Chicago, there still is an abundance. Just the last 30 days, we've really started not seeing as many deals as we used to. So yeah, mostly MLS deals at that point.
Okay.
And auction.com and so forth.
Okay.
All right. So, you mentioned Section 8. I've worked with Section 8. I know Brandon had a little experience with it, but let's talk about exactly what is Section 8 and how does it work?
Section 8 is a program put out by HUD that is basically subsidies for low-income families. There's families that work and only part of their rent is paid, and there's families that don't work at all and get 100% of their rent paid.
Gotcha. So how does it work in terms of rent? Are you receiving, is the Section 8 rent the market rent, or is Section rent set by the locality or by HUD, based upon area?
It is set by HUD, and it does go with market rents of a particular area, so long as it's not a super high-end area. But the rents are set by HUD, and the size of the place, and the amount of bedrooms, and if it's a single family. There's a pretty sophisticated formula that I don't think too many people could really put their thumb on how it really calculates out. But I could tell you an approximate range based on how many bedrooms, what I'll get for rent.
Yeah. There's a chart I think that you can look up online, and you can actually check out your. I don't know if it's state or city. I'm forgetting now, but it would basically tell you exactly what rents you would get based on a 3 or a 2 bedroom or 1 bedroom. What I've found is then in some areas those rents are actually some they're a little bit lower than market, but in some you can actually get a lot more rent through Section 8 than you could the market rents. And it does tend to be attractive in those areas, I think.
Yes.
What are you getting? I mean, what do you see in your area for Section 8? Do you see higher rents for Section 8, lower, or about the same?
In that area, yes, it is definitely higher. Out here in the burbs of other subsidies we manage, it's lower, or about $100 lower, 10% lower, pretty much.
Okay, I was gonna ask, when you advertise a Section 8 rental, do you actually advertise this is a Section 8 rental? The reason why I ask is I got a rental right now that we've been advertising for a month now, and we can't get this thing rented. And it's a pretty low income. It's a basement apartment, so it's not a high class thing. Should I be putting this in my advertising that this is Section 8? Josh,
absolutely.
Think so. What do you think?
Yeah.
Well, we put that it's welcome. I actually called the local realtor board a few months ago asking, can I put Section 8 only? And they said I wouldn't do that.
So maybe Section 8 welcome in there.
And there's a website called Social Serve. It's SOCIALSERVE, which is kind of the affordable housing listing place. So if you've got a property, Brandon, that would be Section 8 accepted, you have to get into the program. The unit has to be inspected and all that. You could then list it there.
Cool. Yeah,
yes.
I need to probably work towards that because I don't like vacancies. I don't think I've ever had a vacancy last over a month, and this one might be over a month, so not fun.
I remember one of the nice things about Section 8 was you kind of have a little bit of leverage over your tenants because if they screw up, then you can basically let them know that you're going to contact Section 8, and essentially they'll get thrown out of the program, which they do not want. Have you had any experiences like that?
Yes, it definitely gives you a club to. They're not going to skip out in the middle of the night. They're not going to destroy the place. They're gonna pay their rent. You're never going to lose out on rent. There's so many benefits in that. Just they're part of the program. Now their voucher, their Section 8 voucher, what they have is inheritable as well too. So if mom messes up on it, she can't pass it on to daughter. If mom loses her voucher, it's inheritable for generations.
Gotcha. And then the nice thing about Section 8 also is you're getting a check directly from the government, right? I mean, so you would get two checks if they had a piece of the payment. The government would send you one check, and you'd get a second check from them for their share, correct?
On the first of the month, I get the money like clockwork deposited into our account, so that's nice. Yes.
Yeah.
And then the tenant will pay the difference somewhere in the month. Generally, they're usually pretty good.
Well, that's where I wanted to go to. I got some tenants on government programs, not Section 8, but I got some other ones. And the government will pay, or whatever this organization is, I don't even remember what it is, but they will pay. It's like the rent's $450 or $500, and the rent the tenant has to pay like $50 a month. It's really minor. It's like nothing. Though the tenant never pays it. I mean, like every month we have to send a late notice to them, a 3-day notice, and then we have to serve that. There's $35 more. I mean, like it's a pain in the butt to have to get this $50 from them every month. Like, how do you combat that in your business?
Well, I'll tell you this: some of the CHA tenants that are that you have an $800 a month payment, you get that like clockwork. The one you're trying to get the $10 or $15 payment, for us, we sometimes just let it go for a couple months when it's actually worth fighting for. At that point, yeah, it's tough because most of the time they have no income and they really don't have anything, and they might not even have that $10 or $15. And how that became their portion, we're not even sure how. But
I know that's what I'm looking. Yeah, I'm thinking, do I evict this guy over $50? I don't know. It's hard to know how far you push that.
Yeah, and do you get him kicked out of the program for the $15 that they're not paying you? That's. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a legitimate question, and I know I struggled with it, and I think I allowed for leniency for a while until other things caused evictions to come up. If it was a unit that was $600-700 and their share was $50. I know I needed to collect it, but I mean, I don't work with Section 8 tenant clients anymore, but I certainly, kind of let it slide because I knew the turnover cost would be far higher than everything else. But yeah, that's a tough one. And I guess I'd be curious for anybody who's listening right now. On the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show72, maybe you guys can share your experiences and thoughts on that exact point. I'd be curious to hear it.
Yeah. Oh, one more side of the Section 8 thing. I said earlier in the show that I've had one eviction and I'm going through my second right now, but my only eviction I've ever done was Section 8. It was my only Section 8 tenant I'd had, and I did an eviction because what happened was her unit was like really gross. And so like they told her she had to clean it up and she didn't. And so she got kicked off Section 8. And even though like we like to say people don't want to get kicked off Section 8, sometimes people that are on Section 8 are not, what's the word? Like, I don't know, they don't care. Like this lady did not care because for whatever reason. So we ended up not getting rent from her then because Section 8 stopped paying. So I mean, there is a dark side of that is if they get kicked off the program, the tenant has no money to go anywhere. You will have to evict them and you'll have to go through the whole long process to do it because she just had nowhere to go. So I don't know. That's just my sob story about my one eviction. But I don't know. Have you had that happen at all, Mark?
No. We're actually evicting our first Section 8 tenant right now, though. But it was a little different scenario. Recently, they combined the VA, the Veteran Affairs programs, with Section 8. They gave them vouchers. And I have a gentleman, it's almost sad because he's senile. He doesn't know what's going on and he doesn't belong living on his own. And to get anyone to really raise any attention to anyone that we have a problem here, we did have to go through the process of filing and all that stuff. So
yeah, that was kind of the case with this lady too. I think she should not have been living on her own. Just the condition of the house told me that she was not, she should have had help, but she wouldn't let anybody in. She wouldn't let anybody have help or try to help her. Yeah, it was a mess. So there are downsides and upsides, I guess, to both. I mean, to the program.
Now, one of the positive sides, you gotta let me say this one.
Sure.
One of the positive sides is they don't move. Yeah, I have our vacancy is very low. We don't have in the 5 years we haven't had one tenant move out after 1 year. So we're almost guaranteed 2 years every time. We provide a nice house, don't get me wrong, and we respond. We have a good system of responding when needs are happen. So it's part of the management too. But our tenants don't move, and that's nice, and that makes things more consistent.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I think we'll get into management in a few minutes. I want to circle back. We went off on a tangent on the Section 8 just because it came up, but I want to circle back on the deals. You had said you found them mostly through MLS. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not doing any kind of marketing or anything like that?
We're not, but really what we've been talking about, me and my partners, right, recently, and it really prompted by BiggerPockets, is the need to really build a network of wholesalers.
Yeah, we've been hearing that a lot lately on the podcast here, people who have been working with wholesalers. I've never actually bought from a wholesaler before, but now I'm thinking too, I'm like, man, I should really get like a network of wholesalers working for me. So it's kind of a cool thing. And I think BiggerPockets is, heavily driving that, especially the podcast with thousands of people listening, because the wholesaling shows are pretty cool. It's always like, wow, that sounds awesome. Me and Josh always say that after every show. Like, we need to do more of that. So anyway, that's cool. So you want to do more wholesaler stuff. I guess what does your business look like now versus what it was? We keep talking about past, like what it was, what these properties were. Are you still buying all the time, or have things slowed down now?
Yes, we're still buying. We're actually buying. We've kind of ramped up lately and been buying more, but we're buying in better areas. As we've learned our way around on the south side, we don't have to be in the areas that you see on the news to be paying these prices. Yeah. So we've gone to a little more conservative areas that we're still able to get these great returns.
Okay. And maybe before we go on, I probably should ask this earlier. I want to talk about investing in lower income areas. What are some of the challenges that you see in those rough areas? I mean, how rough are they that you're in? I mean, are they ones that you would walk to by yourself, like alone, or are they, worse than that? Are they better than that?
Well, we have a variety of them. We have a couple that we bought right in the beginning are in the worst areas ever, and you won't see me there past like 9 a.m. Yeah, I got like a window between 18 and 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to be there the rest of the day. But there's some that are like that, and the summer crime in Chicago is pretty rough. It makes national news. So yeah, you have a lot of external problems to overcome in owning properties in these neighborhoods.
Do you recommend that people, like, newbies get started? Like, should they look for these cheap houses in these bad neighborhoods, or I don't know, what are your thoughts on that for new people?
I would definitely recommend against it, I guess, in the sense of, unless you have a partner or you have a property manager that knows what they're doing to guide them along.
Okay.
We learned on the fly, and we made a lot of mistakes, and we learned a lot of things the hard way. But I definitely would not start there.
Okay, cool. Well, what about financing? Getting all these properties. If you're buying, you're over 100 properties, how are you affording all this?
Well, we originally, from the get-go, we had a third partner that put up some money, and we took that money and we bought the first 7 properties. Okay. And this was 2009, and we never thought we'd have a problem going to a bank with good credit and all that stuff. I mean, still just blind to how bad things really were at that point. Yep. Our first cash out refi was, I think we paid like 8 or 9 points, 12.9%. And I gave my future child that wasn't born yet up. It was horrible. I left at closing just feeling violated. I felt horrible that day.
I've been there.
But about a year later, it was only a 1-year note. So about 9 months to a year later, we ended up finding a community bank, and we started doing portfolio loans with small local community banks. And that's really the place to be for investors.
Yeah, that's another common theme here on the podcast. I love that.
Yeah. And so right now, most of your financing is through the community bank versus this partner?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. We, paid him off when we first did the first cash out, kind of kept going forward with, we kind of go 5-10 properties and cash out and then do 5-10 more. Now, we also got involved with, and this is something that I've been meaning to post on BiggerPockets. In Chicago, there's a company called CIC, Community Investment Corp, and they do financing for any building 5 units or more. And they're a heck of a lot more lenient on their underwriting than any other bank.
Interesting.
They're a non-for-profit that takes money from the big banks for the CRA money, Community Reinvestment Act. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but all these banks, Harris, Chase, Bank of America, they have to put back in loans X amount of millions of dollars a year. And instead of Bank of America lending on the south side of Chicago, they give $10 million, whatever their requirement is, to CIC, which then turns around and lends it to people like us, and they service it as well too. But they know what's going on in the neighborhoods. They know about these neighborhoods. So
okay. And how does somebody find a company like a nonprofit like CIC?
Well, most cities do have some version of it. CIC will manage anywhere in Chicago, or will finance anywhere in Chicago. It's not just outside Chicago, and there's a couple in Chicago as well too.
But no, my point is, like, if I'm looking in Albuquerque, how do I find the equivalent?
I'm not sure.
How did you end up finding these guys?
Through they really did a lot of marketing out there at the various there's the Chicago Apartment Association. They did marketing through there, and that's how we end up getting hooked up with them.
Okay.
So really, I would just say networking, right? I mean, asking other people how they're financing. That's one of my favorite questions. Whenever I meet another investor in my area, I always ask them, like, so how are you, like, what bank are you using, or how are you financing your deals? And I find some good community banks, good portfolio lenders that way. So.
And they'll also do construction too. So they'll give you finance and construction. That's probably the most important part of them.
Nice. That's awesome. What kind of down payment? Great. Yeah. What kind of down payment do you have to do on these kind of, like, either this company or the portfolio loans? What are you required to bring?
Well, they're all different. When we're refinancing out, they're generally between 70 and 80% LTV of the appraisal value, or CIC does generally 20% down of the total construction, the project value.
Okay. Cool.
ARV.
Well, let's shift gears. I know we're slowly coming to the end of our show, so why don't we go to property management? Because you're doing a lot of property management, correct?
Yes, we are.
Do you mind me asking, how many properties do you manage now?
We managed 383 unit. I figured this out this morning. That's why I was able to say the exact number. Nice. 383. Whether it be single family, 2 flats, 3 flats, 6 flats, 310 association units. So we manage like 10 or 12 associations, and about 500,000 square feet of industrial and retail space.
Okay. And how many people do you have in your team there, property management team?
Well, we have 2 offices and we have 2 operations, but one for the city and one for the suburbs. But combined, we have, I think, about 18 people.
Okay, cool. Do you mind me asking, because I'm kind of in that stage right now where I'm ramping up again my company a little bit. I mean, how do you recommend finding good people to work with? Like, I'm assuming you had to hire most of these people. Maybe you have a human resource manager now, but how did you hire them and what do you look for?
We were lucky in the sense of, as we were a young company, we were able to latch on to some people that were just in our circle, our network circle, and kind of train them firsthand. So they, I guess, in a way, came at a good value for me because they were unexperienced, and I was able to train them the way I needed to. Because what I found when the market crashed, a lot of people were looking for jobs, but it wasn't the good property managers that were looking for jobs. Those people didn't get let go.
Yep.
So we kind of kept in our own circles of people we knew and kind of trained in-house.
Okay, cool. And I'm a pretty big fan of that is rather than hiring somebody that's going to be the most expensive, just with any business, it's not just real estate, but hire somebody who's passionate, right? And they can do the job and train them up to be the kind of person you want them to be. I'm a big proponent for that. So cool. Why don't we go to then managing these tenants? Like, you're a property manager, so we want to talk about actual dealing with tenants and some specific situations. So first of all, how are you finding your tenants? I mean, how do you market for them? Right
now in this Chicago market, we put them on the MLS, but Craigslist does amazing things lately. Just since the market crashed, we find a lot of tenants on Craigslist.
Nice. Me too.
How then do you screen your tenants? Whether you find them on Craigslist or however else you do find them, what's your best method for screening?
It's not bad. I mean, you could usually, that first phone call, you could usually root them out pretty quick, or that first text message.
How do you do it?
In the sense of, you just ask them a bunch of questions when they're moving and how long they've been where they're at right now. And it all really depends on the conversation.
Okay. You said a minute ago, the text message. Do you guys accept a lot of phone? I mean, like, is that just because people text because they don't want to call, or do you actually say call or text us?
No, I really promote. I mean, all of our real estate signs, our big signs, commercial signs say text okay, because it's kind of, you get back to people faster at that point.
That's interesting. I've never heard that tip, but I kind of like that, is put that on the signs themselves. Text okay, because honestly, I would rather. I mean, obviously, at some point you got to talk to them. You don't know if they're normal or not. But I don't know. I think texting is kind of a neat way to get at least some information going.
Well, I'm curious. We kind of zoomed past it, but what would be the best questions that you have to screen somebody, and really, what are the answers that you're looking for in terms of, okay, this is somebody I need to pass on?
Well, I guess in the when you take that first call for Craigslist, we don't screen too hard in the sense of really their qualifications and all that. My real question is how fast they're looking to move in and how fast we get the space filled. Our application is pretty intense, and the things we require them to show us is really that's so you can take a look at that. And most of the time, if people have a bad background, they'll see what we're looking for and they won't even submit an application.
Yeah. Is there any like major red flags that you look at on an application and say, no, I will not rent to that tenant because of that?
Just not enough money coming in, because people just try pushing it on what they can afford, and you just see that a mile away. And God forbid a car breaks down or someone gets sick, and it all takes is one few $100 problem a month, and you're in trouble then.
Yep.
Evictions, of course, too.
Yeah. Do you rent to people with evictions?
Not generally. Bankruptcies, everything else I'm open to. We really don't go off of credit that much. There's such a big picture in various people's lives that we try really getting that entire picture where, I really don't care if you have a 600 credit score. If you got enough money to put up and you pay first and last month and security deposit and you've never been evicted, and I really don't care if your credit's bad. I love people that filed bankruptcy recently because they wiped out most of their obligation. And now if they file bankruptcy three in the last 6 years, then that's a red flag.
Yep.
It's
an interesting point.
The best tenants right now that I love are tenants coming out of a short sale or even a foreclosure. They got in over their head. Their monthly expenses were $3,000 or $4,000 a month, and now they're coming down to a $1,500 a month rental payment. And they just want to they're embarrassed, they're ashamed. They just want to get back on their feet, and they can't go anywhere for another year, and they won't because it's such a pain in the butt to find this place. So you got them for at least 2 years then too.
Yep. All right. So next question I got for you is let's talk about when tenants go bad. I mean, everything's great. Everyone thinks they're a good landlord when everything's good, right? It's what do you do when tenants go bad? Rent comes in late. You start seeing red flags of your tenant that you already have. What do you do?
Well, the most important thing is in that scenario, and we've all been, every landlord's let it go too far, whether it be a couple weeks or a month or whatnot. You just have to be ready. You have to. I'm not a big landlord of delivering the 5-day right after rent's late. I'll generally give them to the 7th or 8th, and I always tell the tenants up front, if you're not gonna pay on the 10th, let us know. By the 1st you're not gonna pay to the 10th, so let us know. But so I kind of look for that type of communication. But delivering the 5-day and make sure you're in line to start any legal proceedings right away is probably the most important thing, instead of letting it go 3 months or taking their sad stories.
Yep, that makes sense. Well, what about, here's a specific question. I want to get actually some specifics here because, this is real life stuff that landlords are facing and you're a real property manager, so I think you could teach a lot of people. I'm going to throw a few scenarios at you. Totally random, like they didn't happen to me this month. So a tenant, a tenant calls and they call on, what was that? I think it was like rent's due on the 1st, late on the 5th. They call on the 5th and say that they're not getting paid for another week because something happened, blah, blah, blah. What do you do in that case? Like a week and a half. Do you just wait and say, okay, thank you? Or do you file I think it's 5-day for you. It's 3-day for me. What do you do?
Well, my first question always is, do you have anything? Can you give me $300? You're not going to have it all. And generally we could usually get a few $100 out of them, which makes me feel a little better. So I'll get a few $100 out of them if that's possible. And I'll serve them a 5-day right away for sure.
Okay. So you'll serve prior to receiving the few $100, or you'll serve after receiving the few $100?
After.
So how does the law play into that? Because you're collecting revenues from them. So didn't they technically pay rent?
They didn't pay it in full though. And the 5-day you're going to serve is going to be for whatever the balance is after they make the payment.
Gotcha.
Yes, so you could technically serve them. If they owed $1,000, they pay $300. You serve them a 5-day, or for me a 3-day on the remaining $700. And then if they pay another $300 though, you got to serve them. This is the case for me. If they paid an extra, let's say $300 again, I got to reserve them another 3 or 5 with the new number. It starts the process over if I accept after serving. Is that how it is for you?
And my question before you answer that is what's the starting date on that? Because say you receive, say he owes $1,000 rent, he pays you $300. He doesn't, he owes you $7. So you send a notice on day 5 saying you owe $700, and then he pays you another $200 in 3 days. Do you reserve the 5 then, or do you have to wait 30 days? How does that all?
Well, our attorney has advised us that as long as the amount he pays doesn't add up to what the 5-day is. So if you pay that $200, that means he still has $500 left. That 5-day could still be valid, but some judges in Cook County would not find that to be good sports, or wouldn't like you're not working with a tenant. So we always do reserve. We reserve then a $500 one at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think the bottom line is you want to talk to a very good qualified attorney in your area who inform you of the local laws, because all these landlord tenant laws are going to be different in different jurisdictions.
Yes.
Yeah, and even more than that, like a lot of things just, I mean, flat out aren't laws. Like here's a situation that happened to me in the last few days. I went and talked to I served a 3-day notice. In Washington State, we have a 3-day notice, and somebody from Washington is going to call me and email me and tell me this is wrong. But we have a 3-day notice, and then we have an additional 10-day notice to pay the late fee. So we don't put, like, basically there's 2 forms that we serve. There's a 3-day and a 10-day. And if you can't put late fees on the 3-day, but you can on the 10-day. It's all this like complicated stuff. So I go to my attorney and I say, I served a 3-day and a 10-day. And he goes, why'd you do that? And I'm like, well, because the law says you have to. He's like, don't worry about that. We've never done it in the history of our company. He says, no judges don't care. Just serve them a notice, put the whole thing on one. Even though that's not technically the law, he says do it anyway because that's how it's always done. It's a technicality. I don't know. So it's weird, like, right? Like, even though something's law, it's still like subjective, and there's different ways to do it that a lawyer even would tell me. So I don't know
unless you need a better lawyer.
But I mean, like, this is like the major, like he handles most of the landlords in town. And I think it's like in our local area, that's just not how it's done. It's just nobody does it that way. And even though it might be a law in Seattle or they might care up there, the judges in our area don't. And he knows that I didn't. So I don't know. It's even the law is a little bit fuzzy, I feel like sometimes.
Well, it definitely is, because so much that if the tenant doesn't show up, nothing ever really comes of these technicalities or paperwork not being delivered, served right. That tenant shows up, it's a whole nother ballgame, and sometimes the judge is really the ruler of all those decisions.
Exactly, just like you said, the judge is. Like you said earlier, you might get a judge that might not like the fact that you're not doing that. So really, in the end, it just comes down to what a judge wants to do. And your lawyer is going to have a better idea of what a judge will or won't do because they know your judges a lot better than you do. So anyway, moving on.
Well, so I've got a question here on this on property management a little bit more here. How do I know your firm is going to do a good job by me? How do I vet you? How do I shop and decide, okay, well, you guys are actually good, or you guys are going to burn me in some way, shape, or form? What do I need to look for to find a good property manager?
Good questions in vetting a property manager is to request a list of properties you manage, so you could drive by those physical properties and see what type of shape they're really in. Kind of ask them what their collections is at, their collections rate is at, because that kind of, and if they don't know the answer to that, the guy you're talking to, then that's a red flag too. Then how long it takes you to rent a particular apartment, or how long it takes turnover and so forth, and costs for maintenance. And the really, for a landlord, if I was looking for a property management company, I would be looking for, how is the property manager going to communicate with me? Who am I going to communicate with, and how am I going to get my information on my money on a monthly basis? How am I going to get my money? Those are all kind of important concepts.
And so what do you do then? I mean, if I'm looking at you and company B and company C, why would I pick you then?
We're going to pick us because we're going to do a good job.
I mean, is there anything that you do that stands out, that's above and beyond what anyone else does, or is it is this kind of a commoditized business at this point?
No, I definitely don't think so, because I think there's enough bad property managers out there that make the good ones look like heroes.
Right. No, and I don't disagree with you. I've worked with some of the worst. But my question is, how do we the questions you asked are good, and we've got a couple posts on this, and hopefully we can share these in the show notes. Questions to ask property manage, some of the screening things. I'm just curious, I guess more so, do you guys, for you specifically, have some kind of USP, unique selling point about your company that you would say, oh well, we're better. Well, why are you better? What's better about what you guys do? Are you doing something cool that maybe other property managers could do, or are you doing something that I as a landlord can bring to my property manager and say, wow, this guy on this podcast is doing A, B, and C, and you guys need to start doing that, or I'm going to go find somebody who does.
Well, no matter how much technology gets, which we're utilizing, we really pride ourselves on the communication. We want to make sure the owner is comfortable enough that in a few months they're really letting us just run their property and paying them out on a monthly basis. And the level of comfort that we give a client is really what sets us apart.
Okay, cool. I have a question.
Hopefully that wasn't too corny.
No, I like it. And that's something that's hard to find. I mean, in my area, we don't have any property manager that I trust, because I don't think any of them cares about customer service or making me feel good as a landlord. For example, my wife, I've been talking a lot to my wife lately about wanting to get property management to kind of get her out of having to do any work with the rentals anymore, because it's driving us a little bit nuts sometimes. So her point is this: when she drives by our rental properties, she goes and drives by them, and the blinds in our apartment complex, there's a couple of units, the blinds are destroyed. Little kids just wreck them. They put up a Power Ranger sheet in their place, right? Like, I mean, this is a decent, nice neighborhood. There's a big Power Ranger sheet and wrecked blinds that look like, there was a mass murder that took place there. How do I find a property manager? And is that a property manager's job even to go and make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen? Because I don't expect you to go drive around to all 300 of your properties. But at the same time, I don't expect my property to look like it came out of some, third world country. So how do you reconcile those two things?
Well, the aesthetics of the property is so important, and that's a big one. The blinds, especially on the south side. But in the sense of you have to send that tenant the notice that they have to put the blinds back up that they broke, or they have to replace them if they're not going to in whatever day, 3 to 5 days. We're going to come out, we're going to hang our new blinds, and we're going to charge you back. That's generally how we would handle that. And we don't use too high end of blinds, so it's usually a relatively cheap fix. But it's really
use
giving
the $5 ones from Home Depot.
Yeah, you give them the chance to fix it. When they don't within that certain period of time, which they generally don't, then you charge them back.
Well, to that point, to Brandon's point, though, you've got, I don't know, I mean, you've got hundreds of units that you take care of. It sounds like, and lots of property managers do. Should I expect my property manager to go and visit? You're doing a flip, right? You're going to be on the, you even said it earlier, you're going to be on the site every day, make sure they're doing their job. I, as a landlord who may live 1,000 miles away, or I may live up the block, I need to know that somebody's going to go and make sure it looks okay. So is that part of the job, that you go by and look at the property? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
We tell people that we'll be at or on the property at least once a month, and sometimes more, just for maintenance reasons. But if there's properties that nothing's going wrong, it's just a sweet old lady, we still make sure it's on our checklist to at least drive by and make sure that everything's okay.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
You should expect that, to answer your question. Yes, you should expect that.
Okay. Yeah. And I need to and that's something I've never really asked property managers in my town. I fear that they wouldn't. I fear that they wouldn't, because they got hundreds of properties. They don't care about mine. What do they care about if there's blinds wrecked? And I feel like we would just drop the ball. Nobody would do it. My property would go downhill, and we'd end up, having third world country apartment building.
Well, here's what I've learned. I think when I first started, I was under the impression that I was getting interviewed by the property managers, and they do that. That's what you do. Hey, how many properties do you want to bring into our shop? Here's kind of our rules. Here's what we're looking to do. It's just as important, if not more, that you interview them and you tell them what you expect of them. And I think, Brandon, this applies for you specifically, as well as anyone else listening. If you expect them, if you need your properties managed and they're not doing it, then you need to go interview somebody else. Yeah. I think that's the end of it. And you shouldn't be afraid to fire a property manager who isn't doing their job, because frankly, the bottom line is these guys are tasked with doing everything that they're tasked with doing. And if you have an expectation and don't set that expectation up front with them, hey, I want to know that this property is in good condition. I don't want to have to drive by and find out that the blinds are destroyed and you didn't do anything about it for 3 months. So if you're not going to do that, I'm going to find somebody who is. And I think if you come into the relationship and say, okay, this is what I expect from you as an owner, being informed and knowing what is to be expected of a property manager is going to put you in a much stronger position, and it's going to ensure that you are actually getting a property manager who's going to do the job.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just like a hump I got to get over. And so I really enjoy talking to guys like you, Mark, who can kind of reassure me that there are good property managers out there who do drive by the properties once in a while and do all that stuff. So I definitely love these podcasts when we talk to property managers. We probably should do more of these, landlord ones. But Before we go to the fire round, I want to ask you one final question, and that is completely unrelated to anything we've talked about so far, but I love this question. If you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice from now, knowing what you know now, go back in time when you first got started, what would you tell yourself?
Real estate related, I would predict the crash. I would save more money when things were good before the market crashed to take advantage of when they did crash.
Okay.
Even more so. I think I took a pretty good advantage of it, but if I would have done even more, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really good point. I mean, for other people too, like we may or may not be going into another bubble. I mean, people think we're probably in a bubble right now in a lot of areas. Is the market going to crash again? I don't know. But if it does, it sure would be nice to have more cash. So when it does crash, that we can buy the cheaper properties again. I don't know. I think people could probably apply that both ways. But anyway, moving on. Why don't we go to the...
It's time for the fire round.
All right, the fire round. All right, these questions come straight out of the BiggerPockets forums. Josh, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Do you have any tips for beginning property managers?
Yes, take classes. There's always local, whether it be research and classes and BiggerPockets. Learn as much as you can and listen to everybody else's mistakes. That's the number one thing.
Good tip. Listen to other people's mistakes. That's very smart. All right, second one. Should I put down 20% on a property just to avoid mortgage insurance?
I believe mortgage insurance comes at a small cost to have that money liquid for something else.
Okay, cool. So you would say probably not.
Probably not.
If that's the only reason why you're doing it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So how long does it take for you to rent an average property out?
Well, right now in the prime of this is the best part of the year to be renting, and if you're priced right, it shouldn't take more than a couple of weeks right now.
Okay. All right, cool. And my last question, how do you do your due diligence when buying a property?
Really, the larger thing that I'm always worried about is in the city of Chicago, they're all older buildings that we buy, and it's really foundation cracks and if the floors are sinking, those type of bigger ticket costs, and roof. Those are generally the bigger ticket costs.
Yep. So you just look for those, make sure that they're all good enough condition?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Well, let's finish this thing up with the world famous. Famous for. These are the questions we ask everyone, every show. And you listen to our show, Mark, so you know what's coming. Number one.
Yes. What
is your favorite real estate book?
The Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
Oh, okay. Agent by Gary Keller.
Yes.
Cool. I have still not read that one yet. I've read the investor one, but not the agent one. But I hear I need to, so it's on my list. Cool.
Nice. What about your favorite business book?
Favorite business book? Right now I'm reading. I'm about halfway through E-Myth, which is really helping me in our growth process of the companies. But another one that I've actually read the whole thing through is Best Business Advice I've Ever Received. It was, I think Donald Trump's name was on it, but it's about 10 years old.
I just bought that one, actually.
Oh, it goes through excerpts of all these other people that have made it big and their best advice they ever received. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, very cool. I'm actually going to be taking a mini road trip tomorrow. I'm going to go visit my family over the weekend. And in the car, it's like a long drive. I'm actually going to get the audio book of the E-Myth because my wife's never read it. And I thought my wife would like that book. So we're going to get the audio book and I'm going to re-listen to it this weekend. So yeah.
It's amazing how true it is.
It is, right? I remember when I read it like a year ago or a year and a half ago. I thought it was amazing. And anyway. All right. So we got the real estate book, got business book. Next is
hobbies. What about hobbies? What do you do for fun?
Well, in football season, I like watching football, college Saturday, NFL on Sunday.
What's your team?
Bears for NFL.
Bears.
The Bears.
Sorry, couldn't help it.
And then I like Stanford for football the last few years. They've been exciting to watch.
Cool.
For college.
Cool. All right. Final question from me. What do you believe sets apart successful real estate investors from those who give up or fail? See, I said that clearly this time, Josh, right? All right.
Well, that's why I don't take them. I can't say that.
Yeah, you make fun of me for that. All right. What do you think sets them apart?
Investors that are successful have failed, are prepared to fail, and get back up right away when they do fail. So it's really just accepting failure.
All right. I like it. I don't like failing, but I like your answer.
Right on.
Great.
Right on. Cool.
All right.
All right. Well, listen, it's definitely been great. Lots of good advice. Where can people find out more information about you, Mark?
Well, you can find out I'm always floating around BiggerPockets, and then gcrealtyinc.com is our company website.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. And for anybody listening, you can also ask Mark any questions you have on the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show72. Thanks again, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys, that was Mark Ainley with show 72 of the BiggerPockets podcast, with lots of good information about property management and lots of other topics as well. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We've got plenty more in the lineup, so stay tuned for that. You can meet folks like Mark and all our other guests on BiggerPockets.com at www.biggerpockets.com. Hopefully, if you're not already a member, you'll jump on board and get involved and start to learn from your peers. Otherwise, if you want to find out what's going on with us, always follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, G+. We share lots of content there. We actually share some stuff unique to each of these different areas. For example, if you wanted to check out the redesign of BiggerPockets, we put some special exclusive screenshots of some of the new pages on our Facebook wall a few days ago. So you could always check for those. That's really about it. We appreciate your listenership. I can't talk today. We appreciate your listenership.
You can't talk today. You can't talk any day.
Thank you. There you go. Always the peanut gallery. You know what, Brandon? I'll just stop and let you finish.
I got to finish last week, 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, you're not going to finish this week. Not going to happen. Psych. All right, guys. I'm Josh Dorkin, signing off.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.